Hi, I'm Femi OK and you're in the stream. Today, Morocco's mental health dilemma. How can the country respect the rights of the mentally ill while honouring cultural traditions? Well, good timing for this conversation. It is Mental Health Awareness Week around the world. Malika Bilal, digital producer of the stream, how tuned in are our community, or is our community, to mental health issues?
Well, they're pretty tuned in. What I've been going through is Twitter and looking through all the tweets that look a little something like this, alerting people to this week, Mental Health Awareness, 12th through the 18th of May. Now, our community specifically wants to look at cultural instances of how this is applied in different places, and of course today we'll focus on Morocco. Sarah brings up, thank you for bringing a cultural approach to this topic. She goes on to say, as a speaker and advocate on mental health, I know that ignoring culture and context harms treatment. So we'll talk about both culture and context in today's show. Can't do it without you though. Tweet us with hashtag AJStream.
Now, we can't also have the conversation without our studio guest, Lubna Scalia-Hanna. She's a Moroccan native and cultural anthropology professor at American University right here in Washington. Lubna, welcome back to the stream.
Thank you.
You'll hear more from Lubna in just a moment. So if this conversation is important to you, or if you've got another story on your mind, do let us know. Really easy way to do this. Go to stream.aljazeera.com and then you can just click on the video comments section. You can share your thoughts really easily. You press the record button. This also works if you've got a smartphone too, so you can either do it on your laptop, on your computer, on your smartphone, and then you too can record a message and be in the stream like this.
My name is Abraham Paulos. I'm a human rights activist and I'm in the stream.
Morocco's health minister has said that he'd like to close a facility known for shackling, starving and beating mentally ill patients, but he can't. One of the reasons is because the facility, called Booya Omar, is a shrine. It reflects the crossroads of cultural tradition and modern mental health care facing Morocco and other similar cultures. Some think that bad spirits cause depression, schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, and they've turned to exorcism and spiritual healing for years. Now, last year, the king opened a new psychiatric centre as part of a national strategy to improve mental health, but many facilities are still in poor condition and public trust in them is limited. So, how can Morocco best support mental health? With us to talk about that in Rabat, we have Dr. Jalal Tufik. He's director of Al Razi University Psychiatric Hospital. And in Casablanca, Yosa Tazi is mental health advocate with the Moroccan Association of Psychiatric Service Users. Great to have you all here in the stream. Yosa, you work with people who have mental health issues. Can you give us an example how maybe mental health is treated and viewed in Morocco through perhaps a case history that you can share with us?
Well, yes, first of all, the modern facility you showed is the hospital I run, just between brackets. But who's going to jump in?
Yosa.
Yes, sir?
Yes. Well, you started, so you started the conversation, and Yosa can jump in. You go ahead, doctor.
Okay. Well, the problem in Morocco is, let me just lead you a little bit through history. What happened? What happened is that we had for decades, I mean, in the last century, kind of psychodynamic-based psychiatry that was a legacy from the French era. And of course, the problem is that this psychodynamic kind of based psychiatry is on psychology and psychopathology mainly.
All right, so as a layperson, doctor, what does that actually mean?
What it means is that people tend to, at the time, people used to see psychological conditions and psychiatric conditions as something that had to do with, I mean, I'm talking about professionals. Yes. It has to do only with psychopathology.
All right.
But the community time, because all these symptoms, all the, psychiatric disorders manifest themselves through behaviors. And weird behaviors and bizarre behaviors and strange behaviors at the time used to be seen as something that has nothing to do with any medical discipline and medical specialty, and they needed to be interpreted in a way they could be understood by people. So people used to ask questions about these new strange behaviors, and whom they turn to relatives, they turn to close friends, they turn to the community, to imams, to fiqhs, And of course, those people have so low awareness about mental disorder as a medical discipline.
So, Dr. Challa, how successful was that, Dr. Challa, using the community as your counsellor? How successful was that?
I lost you.
How successful was using the community as your counsellor, which is basically what you're saying? They didn't go to medical professionals; they went to the community as a counsellor. How successful was that?
I'm sorry, I lost
you. I can give you part of the answer if you
jump in, Yosa. Go ahead.
I will jump.
Yeah, we're talking about old times. Professor is talking about 100 years, but I had an experience myself only 24 years ago when my young brother was diagnosed as schizophrenic, and I saw we're in a big family, and my parents were there, but younger people were there. People who went to school had their point of view, but people who didn't go to school had another point of view, and we were faced with all kinds of interpretations of his disease, and some wanted him to go to simply religious people to help him get out of this situation, because they were not considering him as being sick or being ill, when others wanted him to go to see a professional, a doctor. But for the parents, it was very, very difficult for them to accept the illness of their child. And they loved him, and they felt a little guilty accepting the disease of the child. And we couldn't take him to a doctor for probably 5 or 6 years. Because the parents had to take this responsibility. Me as a brother, I couldn't take any step towards taking him to a hospital or taking him to see a professional. And this is just to get back to what you are saying. Of course, there is a cultural impact, a religious impact that is very important, and people have this tendency of refusing the disease and wanting to treat the person just as if it was a bad eye or black magic. You feel less guilty when you say, yeah, the people are jealous, people from the family are probably jealous, and they just threw some kind of sorcery on him.
I think you're using responsibility. Sorry to interrupt. I think you're using a very important word, which is guilt, and family response to what is perceived as not defined or diagnosed in modern terms, but perceived as a spiritual, spell being cast, magic something. You really raise important points, and that's what I'd like our audience to understand. Families respond the way they respond out of love and out of protection. And I'll go to what Dr. Challa said about the stigma. We all know there is a stigma attached to mental health. And families may overprotect sometimes by not going to modern medicine because they do not want the label of our son is schizophrenic, and in fact, all of these in our Moroccan everyday language is simply reduced to madness. We use the word madness. Whatever the diagnosis is going to boil down to one word. And madness equals to stigma, not just to the individual in the family, but actually the entire community. So I really want people to understand that whatever cultural practices are there are part of our identities, our history. And I'm not saying there are no abuses and rights, and we're going to go to that in a moment, but I really want the audience to understand we do what we do out of love. And nobody says that if we go to cultural approaches, we're actually excluding the modern. As we just heard from you, Mr. Tazi, it's sometimes a combination of both.
And of course, in that combination,
yes.
there's a wide range of treatments. Now, one person brings up exorcism. This is Lahsen tweeting in, exorcism is still widely practiced as a result of failing health and education systems. And he goes on to say, surprisingly, he says, enough wealthy people use religious healers too. Yasser, I want your thoughts on exorcism and this wide range of treatments. I'm picking up on what Lubna says, this is a family's effort to treat their loved one in whatever means that they can.
Okay, I think that some of those treatments are not to be rejected totally. And before we saw the first psychiatrists in Morocco, this is the only option people had. And a big part of the treatment for some patients is only linked to psychological factors, l'effet placebo. And when this person that goes to a shrine or turns towards religion, when they find some comfort and they're convinced, if they're convinced that it can help them, sometimes it does. And I've seen people, I'm not recommending at all to go through any of those processes, neither exorcism nor anything else. I'm not recommending anything, but I saw people going through that and feeling better and being better. And I'm not talking about being cured. Professor, please.
Yeah, can I jump in, please? Because
please,
two things.
Please,
I want to make clear. The first one is, you know, coming up with the modern diagnosis, that's not what generates the guilt. It's exactly the opposite. When you, it's not because you label someone as a schizophrenic that really you put the blame on the family. That's exactly the opposite. When you come up with the modern psychiatric diagnosis, and you explain what schizophrenia, for example, is about, what depression is about, what bipolar disorder is about, well, actually alleviates the guilt from the family's shoulders. I mean, it's totally the opposite. People tend to feel guilty when there's no explanation. And of course, they come up with their own explanations. And one of them, of course, is whatever it is the curse or whatever.
Dr. Challa, how widespread is it for people in Morocco to put a spiritual root or cause to a mental illness rather than perhaps coming to see a psychiatrist or see you or maybe go to a hospital? I just want to get our audience to have an understanding of how big this is as a phenomenon.
Well, that's what I was explaining at the beginning when I asked you, but it's okay. Well, let's make the story short. I mean, the thing is the low public awareness of mental health in general, and mental hygiene also, because that's a very important thing to talk about. Now, the thing is, because people are so not aware, they tend to give any explanation that's out there, and that's related to their education and their perception of what they call weird behaviors and acute, strange behaviors that could occur in their families and in their relatives. So that's the problem. And of course, they go to seek explanation in relatives and imams and fiqh because that's the only way they could know, because they're not aware.
May I please? Yes, we are framing this conversation as a class issue, as if those who are educated understand the value of psychology, those who are not educated just resort to alternative spiritual. I hope we are not. If I misunderstood, you know, I apologize for that. But I think that's something we all agree here in response to the question: how often, how frequent is the resort to the spiritual and alternative? It's pretty frequent. I don't think that we have the numbers, but it's pretty frequent, and that's because it cuts across regional differences, as well as class differences. Even the educated and those who understand the value of modern psychiatry and psychology, they feel that the whole treatment probably is not complete if we do not resort to that which has been handed down to us from you know, the community, the tradition. And I'm saying this because I don't believe that there is any one of us in Morocco who has not had an experience within our communities, within our families, of somebody suffering from, you know, a mental illness. We've had friends, brothers, sisters.
I'm sorry, I cannot make that statement because, you know, I'm an evidence-oriented kind of guy, and there's no studies showing anything. I mean, it's you cannot say this kind of thing. So what we can say.
What is it that I cannot say? What is it exactly that I cannot say?
That there's no Moroccan that had sought the traditional whatever healing.
Sorry, I did not say there is not a Moroccan who has not sought. I just said there is not a Moroccan who does not experience within the family and community somebody who's suffering from a mental illness. That's Professor what I'm saying in all, and I agree there is no evidence, but l'Organisation Mondiale de la Santé, the WHO, as well as Moroccan organizations, I think that the evidence they are giving us, and that's what I'm I'm going by is that there is a very high percentage of the Moroccan population that has some form or other of mental illness. So probably I'm quoting 46%. And I'm saying this, I don't know how they define mental illness. That I need to look into. But all I wanted to point to is that that's the evidence that's probably there. But we also know that given the shift that our society is going through, given the challenges that our culture is faced with, in terms of unemployment, etc., that mental illness is probably a reality.
All right, so I hear some pushback from Dr. Jalal. So what did you want to add?
I just wanted to say that maybe even with educated people, of course, the first reflex would be to go towards religion. This is what I saw in the majority of cases. Okay. And there is another question that is very important. It's how many doctors, psychiatrists there are for the Moroccan population, and I'm sure that the figures are very, very low, and the facilities where you can put anyone who is mentally ill, this infrastructure does not exist or is rare. And we give no choices to Moroccans except to go to all kinds of other possibilities of treatment, because they find no places in the hospitals and they don't find enough doctors. And I know some doctors that are very famous in Morocco, and I'm not going to tell their name. They're very famous, but I heard that they would be receiving something like 30 patients a day, which means less than 5 minutes per patient. I think this is not acceptable.
Okay, guests, let's take a pause for a moment, because I want to bring in the community as well, then we'll pick up with you. Malika.
Well, one of the places that some of this treatment happens is at shrines, one of them very famously known as Booya Omar. I'd like all of our guests to have a listen to this video comment on someone, a Moroccan who visited this shrine, and here's what she had to say.
I have worked on a project and I got to visit Booya Omar a couple of times. It's sad to see how superstition keeps mentally ill people from getting medical help. For some people, it also has a historical and religious meaning, so it's hard to go and convince them that it is wrong. But if we want Morocco to develop further, it's essential to start by shutting down such places and providing ill people with actually psychological help.
So, Lubna, of course, we don't have time to go into the historical background of Booya Omar, but very briefly for our audience, can you explain what places like that represent and why you have people like her saying you should shut it down?
Well, first of all, the shortest response to what I just heard is, I am sorry, that is not a decision that is up to you. It is up to the community and to the Moroccan society to figure out what works best for it. It's not a one-person decision. That's not, how we look at things. Now, to go back to Booya Omar, the professors with me today know that there has been a study done, in 1993 by Khadija Namouni on le culte de Booya Omar. So it's a saint. It's referred to in the vicinity of Marrakesh as a saint with the powers and the blessings to take care of the mental illnesses of people. And while we do not have exact historical dates about the when and the how, it falls within the broader.
Okay, so Lubna, let's just push on a little faster here, because the time is not our friend today. It's a shrine where people go to seek some kind of healing.
That is accurate.
And that
has been in practice since the 16th century.
All right. So your point here was families do this out of love. You have to respect cultural practices because they're done out of love. Let me go to Dr. Jalal. Tell me some of the things that you have heard, you've seen, that happen at Booya Omar.
Well, let me first, I don't agree because this is really simplistic. I mean, I'm sorry about that, but this is a simplistic way of looking at things. We all know that seeking treatment and the nature of demand of any treatment has many internal factors and external factors. I'm not going to go through them. Internal factors, of course, is conviction, is education, is your personalities, your history, and everything. And external factors, the most important external factors, access to treatment. if you have access to treatment, or then it could lead you to treatment if you don't have access. And people don't always have access to psychiatric treatment, and I agree with that. But I'm not going to go back to this because it's reducing the whole thing to one approach. Now, the shrine, to me, should be shut down because this is infringement of human rights. This is a violation of human rights, and especially of the mentally ill patients. And I think people are aware of it. Policymakers are aware of it. They're going to shut it down eventually. That's no other option.
So, Dr. Challa, we mentioned starvation and beating and shackling. This is hard for people outside of Morocco to believe that this would happen.
That's what I was talking about.
Right.
Violation of human rights.
Right.
May I jump in?
Okay, I am going to play something because I want to bring this back to really the families who are in Morocco who have family members who have mental health issues.
But
so
I also would like to say
to
something
Abdullah Kaddali. Hold tight for a minute, Lubna, because this is important. This is a family who is part of this whole issue in Morocco. So Abdullah Kaddali, his son is a schizophrenic, and he was talking about the impact on his life, his family's life, his son's life. Have a listen to this.
Le malade est stigmatisé par les petits-enfants qui peuvent même le suivre avec des morceaux, des cailloux et des insultes. On peut considérer ça que ce sont des choses de gaminerie, des choses d'enfants. Mais la souffrance en stigmatisation dont souffre la famille, c'est plus grand que ça. Est-ce que vous pouvez imaginer une fête dans le quartier? La maman du malade, comment peut-il se présenter dans cette fête? Est-ce qu'il peut chanter, danser, montrer la joie comme les autres?
So this is the reality, Yosef. Whether you believe in respect cultural traditions, whether you feel there should be better psychiatric hospitals, reality is families like Abdullah Kaddali's family, they are suffering. There is a plan, though, is a mental health plan in place for Morocco. How optimistic are you that this will change mental health and the treatment that's available in Morocco today?
Well, I'm very optimistic in general, and I'm very optimistic, and I've seen a lot of progresses happen in different fields in Morocco. And I have to say it, when the king is behind this type of decisions, and he is behind this type of decision, then people get moving, and it's always very pleasant to see that it's moving. That's all for me that is important for me, that it's progressing. And now there are also actions led by associations like the one I'm representing. Amali Association is an association of parents and doctors, but the idea and the objective of the Amali Association is to inform the families and also get them involved and understand better what is the disease of their children and get their help, their involvement, because without their involvement nothing is possible. The government can do nothing without their involvement. And another initiative that is very, very beautiful, it's this other association that have gathered the patients, the people who are using the services of psychiatrists. And it's beautiful. I've been spending some time with these people, and the results are wonderful, because we're not talking about them being sick. We're not talking about their diseases. We're talking about all the hope there is in life. I'm a coach, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I've been helping entrepreneurs to create their businesses, and I do exactly the same with them. And they have beautiful imagination, they are beautiful people, and when they start telling me about their illness, I tell them, this you talk with your doctor. I'm not gonna get involved in it. But these
Yosef, I've just come right to the end of the program. Doesn't 25 minutes go really, really quickly? Just to wrap up this part of the conversation before we take all of our guests to the post show, Malika Bilal, what's the community saying?
A teaser that education is important in determining if people will seek medical help for mental illness, and so raising awareness is that first step.
Okay, to be continued at stream.aljazeera.com. Let me tell you about the next AJ Stream show, the legacy of a secret war in Laos. 50 years after the United States began a covert bombing campaign in Laos, unexploded bombs are still killing and injuring people. We look at that problem on the next AJ Stream. Until then, see you online. Thanks for watching. Hello again, thanks for staying with us. This is the Streams Online Post Show. We're talking about mental health in Morocco. Let's get right back to it. Dr. Jalal, Yosser and Lubna, is that the fastest 30 minutes in your entire life?
Absolutely.
Did that go really quickly? Okay, so I had to ask Lubna to just...
Most frustrated.
Yes, exactly. So Lubna, I know that there was something that you was like, Femi, I have to say this.
Yes.
What was it that you had to say?
Well, I wanted to say the following. I respect the work of Dr. Jalal. I respect where he stands on these issues. And I don't think that in the big scheme of things we disagree. Because if he is saying that the shrine should be closed down, I am sure that he believes that we can provide alternatives. That there should be the infrastructure, that there should be the expertise, some kind of services that we are giving people so that we can alleviate the anxiety of families and communities. Where we disagree is, in a way, my perspective is, I am a human rights activist. I totally believe that no individual in the name of anything should be starved, beaten, punished, or tortured in any way. I don't believe that. I don't condone that. But when I say that I don't think this is the smart way to go, is because I believe that the community of Booya Omar does not already have a very positive relationship with the central government that does not check on it only to come and, from the top and shut it down. I think that they need to be given reassurances. I think that they need to be made aware that certain abuses are not leading to healthy recovery of their sons and husbands and daughters and whatnot.
How do you do that?
So you have to open a conversation. You cannot just have a top-down decision. Let's go, close it down, and let's wait to provide you alternatives. We all agree, we've all seen, and Dr. Jalal is better placed than all of us to tell us that there are no more than 5 psychologists or psychiatric experts for 100,000 Moroccans.
Right. Do you know, Lubna, what I'm thinking is that you probably have to go there, experience it, and then you might have a very different opinion. Hold tight for a moment. Dr. Jalal will come right back to you. I just want to inject the community for a moment. Malika, go ahead.
Well, I love, Lubna, that you said that we have to start a conversation, and our community actually seems like they're doing just that. Now, part of that conversation is a discussion on Jinn. It's a word that means, can mean different things, but it's a spirit. It's believed in Islam to be a being that exists in the world with humans. And so a lot of people are talking about that. Mm-hmm. This is a tweet here from Mishi, and she says, I believe that Jinn exists, but many times, especially in some countries, people confuse mental diseases for Jinn possession. So on the back of that, Yosser, I want you to have a listen to this video comment from someone who has a criticism about what this belief in Jinn linking to mental illnesses does to societies. Have a listen.
Okay, I don't believe Morocco can respect the mentally ill. By saying that you're controlled by Jinn isn't respecting the person and the experiences that person has, and isn't conducive to moving forward and having a more positive mental outlook on life. I have a support group on Facebook with members worldwide, and this issue is discussed regularly, not just with Morocco, but in other cultures and societies around the world that have very similar beliefs.
So Yosser, could saying that someone has been possessed by a Jinn dismiss the very real feelings and circumstances of their condition, as the person in this video comment just said?
Yes, believing in Jinn. Religious people believe in Jinn. It's in some African countries they do. It's the bad spirit, and as I said it the first time, it's much easier to put the fault on something we don't know, we haven't seen, especially like a Jinn, than taking responsibility for the disease of someone, a member of our family or ourselves. So this is just a way to get away from the real responsibility we have towards these people. It's just easy to say this is God's willing, and this is God's will, and that's the bad spirit that went into him. That's crazy. I will never take something like this personally.
I think we have to use a phrase like "that's crazy" very carefully in this conversation. Let me just take it, and it's very difficult. let me just take just a moment, Dr. Jalal, I'm coming straight back to you. But this belief in Jinn, the Pew Research Center actually did research around the world. Have a look on my laptop to see where in the world world people believe in jinn. So for Southeastern Europe, Russians are the biggest believers in this survey, 38%. Go to Turkey, 63% of people in Turkey believe in jinn. Malaysia has 77%, Bangladesh 84, Pakistan 77, Afghanistan 70. You go to Morocco, 86%. So really quite high up there. But also, jinn, if I understand rightly, is part of the Islam faith.
Right. Definitely.
It is mentioned in the book.
Part of Islam.
Exactly. The jinns are mentioned in the book. Al-Insan wal Jinn.
All right, look, now take a breath, because I promised Dr. Jalal Toufiq, who is one of the most prominent people in the field of psychiatry in Morocco, time to actually jump back into this conversation. We are so glad you're part of it. Dr. Jalal, what did you want to add?
Well, two little things. Shutting down a shrine, to go back to the shutting down the shrine, is a process. It doesn't happen overnight, and it shouldn't happen overnight. It's a process, but I'm not going to talk about this because I wrote a report on that, and one of the proposal that I made to how to, in fact, close down that shrine, but it's a process. Now, go back to the jinn. You know, jinn is mentioned in all the books. I mean, it's not something that's specific to Islam.
Absolutely.
But the problem is the more you see a community getting education, the higher is the level of awareness, and of course, the lesser you will see this kind of interpretations, because this is an interpretation. Over the last 25 years of practicing psychiatry, I've never seen or encountered or came across any mentally ill patient who doesn't fit within a modern psychiatric diagnosis. I mean, to be very simplistic as an answer, but we can elaborate on that. So all the other things, delusions sometimes could be interpreted as a possession. Depression, strange behavior, disorganization of speech, all these kind of things could be interpreted by someone who is not aware. It all goes down, excuse me, to once again to the level of awareness of the community. Someone who is
Dr. Jalal.
Mental disorders. Yeah.
Dr. Jalal, I totally agree with you. Were it not for education and knowledge seeking, the very first verse that came to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would not have been seek knowledge. We know education is the key. And actually, from the percentages that you just read to us, those who believe in jinn, you could see the correlation. The higher the level of illiteracy in countries, the higher the level of belief in jinns. I mean, I think those facts can be easily established. Here is where I want to ask you a question. Why do we have to make a case for modern psychiatry? I don't want to make a case. I believe in what you are doing, in your expertise. What I am asking you is, why should we choose either or? In most countries, we are going back to finding alternative spiritual ways.
Look, now you should stop when you ask a good question and allow the good
So the question is,
no, do you think... You said the question 3 times. Okay. We got it. the question. Dr. Jalal, go ahead.
I do not agree, once again, because there is a huge cost. You know, Moroccan is it's underdeveloped country. I mean, to say the least. The thing is, we cannot afford to have this kind of conversation, this kind of perception of things, because when any delay of healthcare in any patient costs a lot of money. And if you see people before coming to see us, I mean, they seek a healer 1 year and 1.5 years later, they come to see a psychiatrist in a very poor condition. And the treatment costs more money than if they came to see us in the first place. So this is where I disagree. There's no other option. Modern psychiatry is modern psychiatry. It's a medical specialty. I'm a doctor, and I cannot talk about something else, something I don't know.
Did I have another question afterwards?
No, I'm sorry.
The only thing I know is that, excuse me, the only thing I know is the patient that I see need treatment, and they need early detection and early intervention to make their life better.
Okay, that's a pretty solid answer there.
It takes something like 25 years, 30 years to train a psychiatrist. I mean, how are you going to do it? And the number of psychiatrists is not big enough in Morocco. How do you solve the problem?
GPs have to train GPs. I'm sorry. You have to train GPs.
I'm trying to just field one question at a time for you, Dr. Challa. Everybody wants to ask you questions. Go ahead with the one that Yosa. How do you train psychiatrists in time?
No. Well, first of all, you don't need 25 to 30 years. You need 4 years after the medical studies. That's one. Two, what you need is to train also good psychologists and train GPs for a very short curriculum on psychiatry. That's how you overcome the gap. And three, foster the training of psychiatrists, because this is a long-term kind of process.
Well, Lubna, I know you have another question, but actually our community had an answer to one of your questions from before. You asked, you said you don't have to choose either or. Yes. Our community member has this video comment. He's from the UK, but have a listen to this.
Believing in a spiritual cause for mental illness can prevent people from seeking medical help. I think education's the key. Here in the UK, we designed a leaflet which is aimed at Muslims and explains mental illness as well as addressing the issue of spiritual causes. We found that after reading the leaflet, people were more likely to seek medical help. I think religious healing can be useful if it's used alongside medical treatment, because it can form a type of culturally consistent counselling. However, it needs to be regulated, and if people are being abused or exploited, then it has to be outlawed.
Yes. And this actually community members also sent us this page, which is the leaflet he mentioned on feeling stressed, a leaflet for Muslims, and whoever wants to seek help for mental illnesses will tweet that out. But do you agree with that two-pronged approach?
So I totally agree. I think that those are important clarifications. What I'd like our audience to understand is that I am not putting in spiritual and religious healing. I am not putting just magicians, and I'm not putting black magic. I'm actually putting some of our cultural traditions can give spiritual relief, religious, sense of contentedness. Can I just add one more thing very quickly? And that is, it's actually a question to Dr. Gillette. I just told no.
Yes. So here's the thing. This conversation is only just got started. We have so many more questions for Dr. Jalal, but we've unpacked the idea of the tension between cultural traditions and also modern medicine. I know that the case that Dr. Jalal put was like, it's modern medicine every way. We understand where you're coming from, and also we heard some of Yosa's experiences from a grassroots level. I think you've got a really good perspective to then explore this conversation further, right, Malika?
Definitely, it happens online.
All right, so do you tweet?
I have a tweet that I don't use.
All right, you should tweet more. All of these questions you can put on your Twitter handle. Lubna has stuff to say. Okay, thank you very much, Lubna Scali-Hanna, to Dr. Jalal Tufik, and also Yosa Tazi. On the next show, the legacy of a secret war in Laos. 50 years after the United States began a covert bombing campaign in Laos, unexploded bombs are still killing and injuring people. We look at that problem on the next edition of A Day Stream. Until then, we'll be chatting to Lubna or with all of her questions online. See you there.